Welcome to another future Hamburg Talk on hydrogen. Again, due to the pandemic in a virtual setting. My name is Heinrich Klingberg and I'm glad to welcome my guests today, which are Dr. Uwe Braun, Chairman of the Board of ArcelorMittal Hamburg GmbH, Christian Heine, General Manager Hamburg Heating, Hamburg Verme GmbH, and Dr. Oliver Weinmann, General Manager Vattenfall Europe Innovation. The objective of this talk is to discuss the question of how the development of a sustainable hydrogen economy, specifically in the Hamburg Harbor area, could be realized, could be introduced into the market, potentially when. And we want to illustrate this process with some concrete examples. Where are we today and what's the market? And of course, as always, the question arises, what needs to be done? What framework do we have to have in the future so that we really can set up the hydrogen economy? And I would start with a question to Dr. Uwe Braun regarding ArcelorMittal on the market side. So you have been active in the testing and the preparation for the use of green hydrogen for quite a while now. You have also announced that you will go into this technology. So besides your strategical and operational goals, which you certainly will explain to us now, where are we in this transformation process? What's potentially the next steps? And specifically also, why hydrogen and what preferences would you have on that behalf?
Okay. Thank you for this question, Mr. Klingberg. ArcelorMittal generally has committed to reduce the CO2 emissions until 2030 by 30% and until 2050 to be carbon neutral in steel production. In terms of ArcelorMittal Hamburg, we have a special approach in our technology here almost since 1970. And we are running here in a configuration with a DRI plant and an electric arc furnace. And this is, in the meanwhile, the most demanded technical approach right now in the strategy of all steel producers to achieve the target to reduce drastically the CO2 emissions. Based on this, we have started to think about how we can improve the process. And we were thinking to install an additional direct reduction plant based on pure hydrogen. And on top of this, we want to implement also the hydrogen in our current DRI plant to achieve the target that ArcelorMittal Hamburg can state within 2030 to be carbon neutral. So that's, I think, within this strategy, we are far ahead of others. And we want to make use of this in terms of our approach to be here also in this hydrogen hub a member. To make use of this huge opportunity to take part here and to accompany this strategy to deliver also a contribution to the city of Hamburg in terms of hydrogen utilization.
Yeah. So thanks for this explanation. You mentioned the hydrogen hub. You mentioned the ecosystem that we want to install in Hamburg, specifically in the port area. The next question goes to Oliver. With Moorburg, with the former power plant that Vattenfall has in the harbor area and your plans for hydrogen, you are really going for a new dimension with 100 megawatt electrolyzers, potentially in the future even more. So could you elaborate a bit more? What's behind that? What's your plans regarding content, regarding time? What's next step?
Yeah, of course, happy to do so and happy to join this session on hydrogen. Yeah, we are planning together with partners. It's the Moorburg site, which is in the harbor of Hamburg. Today it's a power plant which has been shut down end of last year and will now be dismantled over the next years. And we intend to convert this into a green energy hub, a green hydrogen hub, and installing a 100 megawatt electrolyzer. We are not doing this only by ourselves, by Vattenfall. It's involved is as well Wärme Hamburg with Christian Heine, who is here as well in this session. It's together with Shell and it's together with Mitsubishi. And these four partners have the strong will to build this over the next years, this 100 megawatt electrolyzer. And time frame, it's we will be ready for operation in 2025, so in 4 years from now. This is our real planning, and we see as well a lot of off-takers in this Hamburg harbor region. We have heard it from Mr. Braun already. The steel industry is very interested in green hydrogen, but there are off-takers as well in this area with a high interest to decarbonize. And green hydrogen is an essential step for decarbonization. And we are quite happy to be part of this development here in Hamburg, since we have a long tradition in Hamburg. And Hamburg, for sure, is one of the best places in Europe to install these green hydrogen facilities.
So again, you were saying that you do this together with partners, and one of them partners is Christian Heine from Hamburg Verme. Actually, if we have a look at the specific market for heating, I do understand that there is a transformation process. A lot of heating today is done by natural gas, and we need to replace that in midterm in order to reduce CO2 emissions. So therefore, it's easy to understand why you're going for hydrogen, even though that's a very early stage. So you kind of show a lot of foresight. What's your strategic goals when you go for hydrogen specifically, and why have you become a member of the consortium?
Yeah, many thanks for the question, Mr. Klingberg. Well, as you know, Wärme Hamburg operates the district heating system here in Hamburg. And as far as our decarbonization strategy is concerned, we have made a very strong pledge to utilize all sources of waste heat and to integrate, especially industrial waste heats, into our district heating system. And if you take 100 megawatt electrolyzers, then you know that produces industrial waste heat in the capacity of around about 13 to 15 megawatt thermal heat. And if you scale it up to 200 megawatt, then it's about 26 to 30 megawatt heat that is produced through electrolyzers. And that's, of course, a capacity that's extremely interesting for us that we want to also integrate into our district heating system. And in addition to that, we're also planning to build a combined heat and power plant in the area of the Hamburg Harbor. And this plant is already hydrogen ready, and 30% of which can be used as far as hydrogen is concerned. So we are also a potential customer, potential user of hydrogen in the future. So these are the main reasons and our main considerations to become a partner in this consortium and for our engagement in this project.
Mr. Heine, I understand then that your strategy is a twofold one. One is the use of heat as a byproduct from the electrolyzer, and the other one, let's say in the midterm, is that you want to have a look at really using hydrogen as kind of a fuel for the heating, be it in block-type thermal power stations or whatsoever. We see that also in other areas like beginning, even there's a small first testing in Hamburg in a certain location. But would you really see that besides this block-type power stations that you also have on a constant level later on the use of hydrogen instead of gas in the normal gas grid and use it for heating? Are the devices ready today? I know in England they do first tests. So what's your take on that?
Well, I think that the use of hydrogen in the heating market is certainly an interesting option for the future. For the time being, however, we are concentrating on industry and on the sector of mobility. I think that's the first focus, because what we need is a successful ramp up and a high availability of hydrogen, which we don't have at the moment. So I see great potential for hydrogen applications in the heating sector, but maybe not just for now. It's a question of the future. I think smaller combined heat and power plants or fuel cells, heating systems in general are a good option in the future. which we will also want to offer to our customers in the Hamburg heating system. But I see this not just now, but more in the foreseeable future.
Yeah. So you have a step-by-step approach for the different market sectors, which is always something very nice to have within a strategy. So you have different horizons and you're already looking at them today on different levels. So coming back to Oliver, you mentioned Marburg, which is of course the most important part for you. Could you probably explain a bit more in detail why Marburg has so good chances to set up the hydrogen production, and how much could that help us to bring hydrogen down via economies of scale or whatsoever to be offered at market costs?
Yeah, why is Marburg best suited for applying hydrogen technology? It's one of the best sites in Germany we can imagine, or in Europe, since we have in northern Germany, in the area of Schleswig-Holstein, a lot of renewables and still a lot of renewables which are curtailed today. So there's a big potential. There are a lot of offshore wind farms. Vattenfall has huge installations in offshore wind already running, and there's a broad additional potential to install, especially offshore wind in the North Sea, which is quite close to Hamburg. So on one hand, if we produce green hydrogen, we need green electrons, we need green electricity, and this is in northern Germany. This is quite good possible, since we still already have connections. We already have large offshore wind farms which can supply electricity to electrolyzers. So this is one essential part of green hydrogen, is green electrons. The other one is that Hamburg has a lot of industry already in this area, and with Mr. Braun from ArcelorMittal is one example in this session here. But there are other utilizations as well. So it's mobility, it's other industries, so which is clustered in the Hamburg industrial region, which is one of the biggest in Germany. Furthermore, there will be built in the future a gas grid, a hydrogen gas backbone from Netherlands to Hamburg. So there will be an interlinkage on a gas side as well. So, and all these things are coming together that Hamburg is, as that, one of the best places to install this kind of electrolyzers, this green hydrogen production units.
So what you're saying is that probably when it comes to the unique selling propositions, Hamburg is on a good side, especially in Marburg, because we have the infrastructure, we have the high voltage grid, and specifically we have the demand. When it comes to demand, the quantities that would be needed on a regular basis and in large volume for green steel, they are certainly a backbone and can be a backbone. They can be even more than a backbone. But what are the requirements for this regarding the costs, CapEx as well as OpEx, Dr. Braun? And can you probably explain to us which role we can see from the future carbon price? Do you discuss contracts for carbon difference, and what are the means really to get green steel and hydrogen used in there on the economic side?
Mm-hmm. Yes, quite. It's a very important question. And based on the situation where we are right now, it's difficult to answer. What we know is that once we go in this direction to get the green hydrogen and we are replacing the fossil energy, that's more or less a statement valid for all steel producers, we can consider an increase of our steel cost by 60%, 60. And that's quite a real challenge, because we are in a global market. And once the competition is not exposed by this carbon CO2 emission, then the regulations and so on, they have a big advantage in terms of the competitiveness. And this, I think, it's now for us very important that we at least to accelerate the process, we need to get some support in terms of the capex and in terms also of opex. And there is exactly it's important to talk about this contract for difference. Once I just take the small example as we have here in Hamburg to give you a picture about this dimension, we are considering also here to install a 50 megawatt electrolyzer with an annual capacity of 10,000 tons hydrogen a year. And based on our cost for gray hydrogen, what we are running now here, we need a huge amount of money. It's a couple of millions to compensate the disadvantage we would have once we go to green hydrogen. And that's a small example. Just to give you an idea, once we scale up the process, once we want to make our steel plant here green, we need 400 megawatts capacity. And this gives you an idea where we are right now, and we have quite to go a long way to get also this material, the green steel, inside the market. So attractive that we have a market there, and that's not the current status. We see now it is starting, the process is starting, but we need to see the come out of this.
So I read somewhere that if we want to do the conversion in the steel industry all across Germany, the amount of hydrogen that would be, green hydrogen that would be needed is in the range of 80 terawatt hours for Germany, for the whole steel industry per year. So that's as much as all onshore wind power plants together. So that indicates the volume we are talking about. And that certainly gives us kind of a hint that not only local production, but potentially also import of green hydrogen could be one of the recipes. Back to Oliver. So you will produce hydrogen in large quantities. We have now seen in midterm the market is growing, the demand is growing, but import, is that kind of a competition to you, or do you see synergies between own production and import? What is, let's say, your view on both these factors?
Yeah, we clearly see synergies here. So it's at the end there will be a competition for sure. If hydrogen is going to be a commodity, but this will take some 15 years, 20 years from now, then there will be competition of local, national production, European production, and over the import. But we are not there yet. So for the next years, decade, or even more than a decade, we need both. From a time horizon, it's quite likely that this local production will be first. So it can be not easy, but it's still a challenge, of course. But to import hydrogen in large quantities, a lot has to be done. So we need these sea vessels for shipping hydrogen in which form ever, if it's liquid, if it's ammonia or whatever. And we need production somewhere else. We need to discharge it in Hamburg, and as well as the Moorburg site, which is quite well suited for because it can, the case, able to take sea vessels for discharging of hydrogen.
The next question also in terms of economy goes to Christian Heine, and it is, so we learned from Oliver and from Dr. Braun that at this point of time, the price, we are not there where we need to go. This certainly is for the heat market also. But there are probably instruments, there are initiatives on the political side, on the strategical side, that we can change this for the better. What would you assume are the core initiatives? What needs to be done first, specifically in your sector, and also to the other colleagues in their specific sectors? What are the priorities? What needs to be changed?
Well, first and foremost, I think I totally agree with Dr. Weinmann and also Dr. Braun that we need to have an early market ramp up, right? We need to kind of enter the first phase and to establish the entire hydrogen value chain in Hamburg. And that starts with the local production of green hydrogen in the first place. And of course, later on, we will need the pipeline-based hydrogen infrastructure that allows imports from somewhere else. And we also need the seaboard import structures via the Hamburg port that will play a role in the future. But first and foremost, I think it's really necessary to install the value chain in Hamburg. If you look at the 15 largest industrial companies, they all face the challenge to decarbonize their industrial processes, right? And as you know, I'm also the CEO of the Gasnetz Hamburg, so I can tell you what we really need is kind of these 15 companies. They use about 570 million cubic meter natural gas in Hamburg, right? That amounts to a third of all consumption of natural gas in Hamburg, right? 7 terawatt hours. So, of course, if you take the perspective of replacing natural gas with hydrogen in sum total, right, that would kind of lead to 1.2 million tons of carbon dioxide reduction, which is a gigantic saving as far as Hamburg climate balance is concerned. But we need to enter the first stages, and for that it's necessary that you have local production on the one side. And what is also necessary is to build a pipeline-based hydrogen infrastructure in Hamburg. We, as you know, work at full speed to establish a hydrogen industrial network with a total length of 60 kilometers in the Hamburg harbor area in order to be able to integrate all industries and to make sure that hydrogen can be transported to them. And I think that is a very necessary first step. And then we have the ability to also integrate all other companies. As you know, in Hamburg we have, next to steel production, also copper production and aluminium production, a lot of refineries. In their attempts to decarbonize their industrial processes, they will need hydrogen.
We are at the edge of the development. So it's and the whole concept, which is being now developed in Hamburg with a production unit in a large-scale production unit at the Moorburg site, a site which can be used for the vessel import of hydrogen as well. So a core of the infrastructure. We have the gas grid is developed by Christian Heine, the hydrogen gas grid to all the customers, and we have a lot of off-takers. It's Uwe Braun and what he explained, and with huge demands. We have other industry which huge demands, and we have mobility. So it's and this whole system we are developing here in Hamburg with Green Hydrogen Hub. This is I would say extraordinary, and we are a leading region here in hydrogen, what we are developing.
Yeah. And I would say, as a conclusion, this is also thank you to your specific engagement, the three of you and even more in the Hamburg network. And I do believe this is really a sign of optimism that we're having here for our economy and for our ecology as well. So once again, thank you. I think that's a good sign that we could make use of, especially in these times. Thanks again for today and hope to hear more from you soon. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.